there are few diametric opposites like what we're going to talk about today. We can look at peanut butter or chocolate, Tweety Bird versus Sylvester, Roadrunner versus Wile E. Coyote, and one of my favorite of all times, Daleks versus Cybermen. But none of those compare to the controversial which side are you on topic like we're going to discuss today. Digital AES or SPDIF versus USB on your gear. Does it get any more controversial than that? So today we're going to be doing a unique version of my videos. This is the Michael has bronchitis version and is the first day he has his voice back. So we're going to make this one a little bit shorter and more succinct than normal. However, I've put just as much listening and analysis into it as I normally do. The difference is I didn't need to use my voice for all of that part. That was just a matter of listening. So I did bring you recently a review of upgrading the streamer to the quite impressive Antipodes Audio K22. This is a great unit. And one of the things that caught my eye was actually a topic that I've talked about in the past that was really brought about by a manufacturer of an ultra high-end DACs, actually two of them, we're talking DACs 15,000 plus, that claim that they don't put USB cables on their DACs anymore because they feel that USB is inferior. So that was kind of food for thought in the back of my mind. And then when Antipodes improved and launched a more updated version of their K22 about 3 months ago, towards the end, I'd say Q3, Q4 of 2023, they talked specifically about addressing the USB to try and bring it up to the level of their digital connections. And I'm thinking, well, this is a similar topic that I've been hearing about more and more lately, so let's address it. As you know, I love to visit the forums and I love to see people have absolute set in stone arguments on stuff they've never heard in their own life. A, cannot make a sound difference. B, absolutely makes a sound difference. C, you're wrong. And oh, I've never listened to it on my own. I don't know what I'm talking about, but these are my immovable positions. So what I do is I take the exact opposite. I find those topics and I say, well, I don't know what the answer is. I'm going to experiment for myself. A perfect example, vibration. You know, I have people telling me that racks can't make a sound difference. Guys, the RevoPods made a huge sound difference. I'm very, very excited now. We've got the Sound Chaos Vibra 68s from Switzerland. We're going to be doing an that actually should be the next test that I have coming up, hopefully next week, if I continue to get better, is going to be on the gear and also on the speakers, the Fine Audio F704 speakers. I'm very excited about these. And conversely, if you remember, I did a 4 or 5 part series on Ethernet switches. And This channel is all about what makes sound great. I'm a big believer that, yeah, typically speaking, you get what you pay for. Having said that, more money doesn't necessarily equal better. So you have to try what works for you and see what you notice in your system, and that's really all that matters. So let's be honest, some of us make purchasing decisions on what cables and connectors the streamers and servers can take and what's better and what's not. We get all wrapped up in this without ever actually trying it. So now that Antipodes really focused on this, and we've got 3 different stealth audio cables to do a test on. This one is their USB double tune. And if you'll remember, I did a video on this. This cable, and guys, these are not tone controls. These are movable. If you actually take the time to do the research, you'll realize that on their tunable cables, these move, and you move these to find where they reject the most interference in your setup to get the best possible sound. And what I found interesting on this is that when I did try this between different streamers, I found that for the most part, I only had to tweak it a little bit between gear. It still stayed in the general position, which I found interesting. But we've got their double tune USB cable. And I actually tried their younger brother of this, which was their single tune version. And that was named the top 3 components of my entire 40+ years of being in the audio world, of the most impressive, wow, blew me away, couldn't believe the difference ever. Then I got the double tune, and the double tune takes that to the next level. I will say, in honesty, the difference between normal USB cables, and when I say normal USB cables, I'm comparing comparable price cables in the 1,000 to 2,000 that don't have the tunable feature, and the stealth blew it away. When I put this on, this was a noticeable improvement to the younger brother of this, but not as big improvement from other cables to the younger brother. So I would say if you went with the first one that I did the review on, you will be in absolute nirvana, you'll be blown away. Once you hear what the double tune can do, it's tough to go back to that other one. So that's this. We also then have 2 of their Vardig versions. One is the XLR, which is tunable, and one is the SPDIF. It is not tunable. Now, I will say that based off of what I read on forums, which I like to read and I like to internalize, but I don't like to put any weight on, generally speaking, if I can just kind of generalize on the topic here, I think most people will argue XLR is always the way to go, is the best way to go. Again, not everybody, but generally speaking. So I was really curious to try the XLR version versus the USB. And I tried this in a 3-step process. The first thing I did is I picked my 3 normal listening songs. The first one is the Jose Carreras. I'll put that up on the screen here. The second one is the Holly Cole. And then the third one, I usually switch between either a live version by Above and Beyond or a Taylor Swift song, which are both, they tell me really good differences and nuances in terms of trying to get it tuned in right on the tunable and things like that. But on this, I really focused on the Jose Carreras. And the reason being is in that song, when he starts to sing, one of the things I really noticed, and his backup choir or singers, whatever, what I really noticed when going to the Antipodes Audio was that I could hear them breathing in and out. I could hear the individual voices. I heard much more emotion than I had heard with other streamers. I was curious whether going from a USB to a digital cable, what that would do to the sound, especially because it goes through different internal processes within the K22 and frankly, in just about every streamer. The biggest challenge on this was, frankly, burn-in. I had to burn in each one of these cables. Now the USB was already burned in, but I had to burn in each of these other 2 cables about 400 hours each. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and burning them in. My process for burning in was twofold. I've got a tube-based DAC. So I did not want to burn them in completely on that tube-based DAC. I run an NOS tube. So what I do is I actually have an inexpensive DAC that I was burning them in on, and I burned them in for about 300 hours on that inexpensive DAC. Then the last 100 hours I did burn in through from the Antipodes to the DAC, and the reason being is I actually wanted to burn in that entire signal path and everything going in those back connectors and all the way in. Overkill? Maybe. But I wanted to make sure that I really thought of everything on this and that there were no variables that I could control that would really alter the results. So we tried the Vardig SPDIF. The Vardig was good. It was clear, there were nuances, it was very nice, but I did feel as though on the SPDIF that maybe from what I was remembering, I was missing something, but I wasn't sure. So in comparing that then to the XLR, now on the Jose Carrera song is what I'm talking about, the differences now became much more noticeable. It was a little bit fuller when Jose came on. His voice rather, I don't know about his face, his voice had a little bit fuller, a little bit more dimension. The singers were a little bit more, backup singers were a little bit more fleshed out. The timpani, I could hear more nuances in terms of whether they were hitting it hard or soft and how it faded in and faded out. There were noticeable more nuances that, I hate to use this word, I don't want to say it made the SPDIF sound thin, because by itself it doesn't sound thin, but in comparison to the XLR, and it may have to deal with the tunable cable, I don't know, this definitely was a step up. So between these two, in my mind, I would absolutely go with the XLR. And then I went with, and guys, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted here, my ADHD. I'm just looking at these cables. They're just absolutely, there is no lighting that can do the sheathing on this, the finish, justice. The pearlescent finish and the carbon fiber connectors, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. These things really are a piece of art. But all right, sorry, shiny object, I'm distracted. And then I went on to the USB. Now guys, again, bear with me, this is the abbreviated bronchitis version. I was really interested to hear this, because if I were to believe what other manufacturers say, not Antipodes Audio, the other ones, USB is inferior, that's why they don't put it on their systems. USB cables are inferior. And I tried the double tune. Guys, it smoked the other ones. Now, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I should say that it was a bigger difference than going from the SPDIF to the XLR. I strongly preferred the sound of the double tune USB. It had much more impact. It had much more fuller bass notes. It seemed more dense. It seemed more whole and cohesive. It seemed just more natural overall. But again, I don't want to say that that means that these sounded bad. This just had more. But I wanted to try the next step, and I put in several other USB cables in its place. I put in some WireWorld, I put in some AudioQuest, again, all in that $1,000 to $2,000 price point. Both of the Stealths were vastly superior to those USBs. So my takeaway is this, that Antipodes Audio has done an amazing job and truly has spent a lot of time and energy focused on this in optimizing the outputs like they say they have. The sound you're going to get out of that, and the sound that works best for you, is going to be more probably DAC and cable dependent, and not a limitation of the Antipodes Audio. So to those that say they can't get USB, or a generic flat statement that USB doesn't sound as good as the others, you're not using the right cable. It's as simple as that. The USB Stealth is absolutely phenomenal in that regard. But if I didn't have that USB Stealth, or I was dead set on a SPDIF or an XLR, I would totally use these Vardigs. And I do like the tunable feature. Guys, I've had a Stealth that is tunable and non-tunable. I am just completely sold on the tunable feature. It is such a huge difference. I was overwhelmed a little bit at first by it. I actually honestly went into it wondering if it was a gimmick. I was blown away by it. They totally dethroned my previous reference cables, which were just as expensive. And there was just no comparison. So overall, I would say, first of all, kudos to Antipodes Audio for a phenomenal unit that really does maximize the outputs on this. Second of all, if you are really looking for the best sound, in my opinion, I love the double tune USB, but if you want to run one of the other ones, or your system isn't as optimized in terms of outputs, definitely check out the other Stealth. Check with your local Stealth dealer. They can help you get the right one for you and figure out what works best for you. They've been really helpful with me in understanding the cables. And I will leave you with this. Right now we are running the Puritan Power Conditioner. I have a review coming up on that, and that's great. And I only want to change so many variables at once. So we actually have several more tests coming up in which we're going to be featuring the Stealth cables and the Antipodes Audio. We've got the vibration control coming up right now. I've got it on a WellFloat platform. We're going to be doing the Antipodes Audio with the Viber 68s and with the RevoPods, also the Viber 68s under the speakers. So we're going to have vibration testing on that. We've also got a K41 server from Antipodes Audio coming. So we're going to be doing a review on that. But right now I'm running the stock cable on the VAC integrated from the VAC into the Puritan. And then I've got the Stealth Dream 2020 cable going from the Puritan into the wall. We're going to be doing a video of the Dream 2020 power cable going from the VAC integrated into the Puritan. And the reason why I didn't want to do that just yet is because I wanted to make sure I really had a firm grasp on the sound of what the stock power cable and what that VAC sounds like before I go changing the power cable. So what I articulate to you is really makes sense, and that I'm confident in what I'm saying is what in fact what I'm hearing. So that's the takeaway, guys. Really impressed by all these cables. You can't go wrong with any of them. It really depends what you're going to want, what you've got for a front end. As usual, the Stealth just blows away everything else that I've put in the system, which it doesn't surprise me, but it does. It just continues to surprise me on that it's not even close. It's such a whole nother magnitude level of lifelikeness and organicness. So really pleased with that. And we're going to continue to, once we get the server in there, we're going to be doing, and we do the power cable, I'm going to be doing another round of testing with these cables, with the Stealth between the units. So we're going to take this all again as we upgrade the other cables and vibration. We're going to see if the outcome changes. So guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and please take a minute and make sure you subscribe. I really appreciate it.